Hello, folks. Welcome to Revenue Talks. This is a podcast series where we decode the future of revenue. My name is Naman Gupta and I'm the founder of Simplify. Simplify is a revenue orchestration platform which helps you to automate your entire revenue lifecycle without any developer effort. Over to this series, we'll be talking to various GTM leaders, we'll be talking to various operators and also founders to decode what's really going on into the space and see how we can evolve based on the changes that are happening around the space. All right, on today's podcast, we are joined by Darshan Kadam, who is handling revenue, operations, and global expansion at Deccan AI. Darshan has worked with various organizations like KK and Whatfix to scale from early customers to a multi global presence. I've been fortunate to work with Darshan personally, and I really love his approach of positive thinking in everything that he does. Today, we are going to unpack how he scales globally, how support helps in all of these transits, and where all of these teams go wrong. But first, let's hear more about Darshan. Darshan, I would love to hear about you. I would love to hear how was your childhood like, how was your life journey has been, and what all dreams you had in your life. For me personally, I wanted to be a scientist at first. Eventually, I wanted to be a game developer. And now I'm in a different track altogether.
Thanks for having me, Naman. Well, in short, I think I'm a through and through sales guy. I enjoy sales. I practice sales. I learn sales more of as a subject and a way of life, if you would call it that. Now, if you talk about my childhood, that's an interesting question. It has been such a journey. So I come from a defense background. My father served in Air Force for 20 good years. After Kargil, he retired. Now I was the so yeah, I have two siblings, and I was his third child, the youngest one. And more of, if you talk about my family, since childhood, I've been in a family of overachievers. Like my father, after serving in Air Force, he started working for the telecom industry, worked there for about 15 years. Now, both of my sisters, one went into telecom engineering, another went into banking. Why this mentioning this in my journey is because for a fifth standard student, there was such an age gap. For a fifth standard student on the dinner table, the conversations used to be, how are you, how are we going to scale 3G network across Rajasthan circle? How are you going about your hiring strategy in Bihar circle? So that kind of conversations used to happen, that in North India, in West India, in South India, how are we going to scale the network? Plus on the banking front, the conversations were totally different. So although fifth standard kid doesn't understand much, but dinner conversations sometimes could be school conversations, right? So since then, I think I somehow developed this knack of building something of my own, trying out new things. Since among all these folks, I was always moving from one place to another place. That fear of going to new places, learning new languages also went away. Now I'm someone, you send me anywhere, I'll figure things out. I'll understand how the map works. I understand, how to live in the city and how to lead, how to build something from scratch. So yeah, that was my childhood. Lived in across, I think, 13 different states across 30 years of my age so far. So that has been life.
Amazing. So, how did you ended up in sales, Darshan?
Okay. So it feels like I've been doing this all my life. Why I would tell you this, that uh, as I was talking about the business conversations that used to happen on the dinner table, I think from that itself, somewhere back in fifth standard, I'm not saying I knew what sales is when I was in fifth, but kind of that knack of making some money came into play. There was a trade fair in summers in my school, and I was like, okay, what to do? Somehow just had that courage that I went to a kirana shop. I talked to that local retailer that, hey, I want to sell ice creams. Hot summer, I wanted ice cream. Somebody else would also want my ice creams. Somehow convinced the guy. I think he found me cute at that point. He let me have his ice cream fridge of sorts in my school. Put it up in a KV, local school that we had. And in one afternoon, for about 3 hours, we put it up there. Made 6,000 in 2005. So for a young lad, that was fun. Now, bring it up to 10th standard, it became game DVDs, bring it up to 10th and 12th, it became alloy wheels while I was in Chandigarh. Pushed me into engineering, first year of engineering, since I had a knack of tech things. I used to build these robo cars. At the end of the day, what do you need to do? 10-volt DC motors, plug it in, put some tires, and then you can basically run the thing. In back in the day, those were also qualified for fourth year projects. So started selling them for some extra cash. Second year engineering, opened up a stationery in college that finds some extra cash. Doesn't matter, it'll just multiply. Then third year of engineering, I had a very cool idea I really wanted to chase. I wanted to change the personal computing space completely. Talk about ambition of a 18-year-old. What I wanted to do was that take away all the personal computing devices and use your tables, your wooden tables, as a computer, touch tables. Of course, inspired by a lot of Hollywood movies, but I found it really cool and I thought, man, I have $1 billion idea. Started off, built some MVPs. We could build touch interfaces on tables. We could do it on different, surfaces, different kind of surfaces. Rather, we experimented with one on water as well, right? So built that, but I realized that to productize this, it'll take a long time, and got into web development because that was also one skill that I had. So started selling websites to small business owners, mobile applications to mid-market business owners who were just getting into digital. Built that, scaled to about 100 clients. By then I realized, okay, some sort of revenue generation activity, I understand. I'm not sure if this fits the definition of sales, because being brought up in India, unfortunately, when you say sales, you recall Rocket saying a guy who has a tie and he's roaming around selling computers, right? Although it is not that for people hearing this. But yeah, so I thought that, okay, I can generate revenue. I know how to run a business. So yeah, I think that's when I found that I enjoy sales. I enjoy generating revenue, adding value to customers more than, getting money in the bank. It's more about, are you adding value to the customers? And I think that's one core principle that has stayed with me all the while and helped me grow in my career as well. And for me, that's the definition of selling or something, like add value to your customer, simplify some things. Your company's name, Simplify. So simplify some things, solve some problems, streamline processes, solve problems for people. For me, that's sales. And I enjoyed it so much that I've been doing that since 10 years now.
So this is really great, Darshan. I wanted to ask you one more thing, which is really important to me. So, do you really like sales, or like, are you into the zone that you have to do sales now?
I enjoy it way too much, but the essence of it would always be the same: add value. Add value in every conversation, from everything. You're talking to your parents, you're talking to your friends, you're talking to a complete stranger. At one point in time, once you've done it long enough, it becomes a part of you. That's why initially, when I was introducing myself and finding words for it, I think this is what I wanted to convey, that it becomes a way of life. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you're always asking for money from people, but you're more of adding value wherever you go in the best possible way, be it a person, be it an organization, be it anything.
I'm really enjoying this, Darshan, now. I have really had some good lessons from you. I would like to ask you one more thing now. This is really close to me. So, I just wanted to check, do you think going global, is it messy? Is it expensive? Or do you think it's worth it? I've seen people getting themselves backtracked because they think it's too expensive to go global. Even if it's not too expensive, maybe it's just not worth it. How do you manage? How do you understand which direction you have to go into? For some time, there are also compliances that come into the picture. We also need to take care of all of these things. I wanted to ask you, what is your view on this?
Interesting. So this is a conversation that I've had multiple times in my life, working with founders, sometimes consulting with founders, speaking to them whenever I meet them. They want to either go into a new territory, they want to become a global company. Some have IPO on the charts, some are just trying to solve the next problem. But territory conversation, I think, always comes in whenever you're speaking with someone who's running a company. Going into new territories can be sometimes scary. As you said, it's expensive, comes with its own nuances. Every country has its own compliances to follow. We've worked in the HRMS industry, so many compliances around payroll itself. Forget about other things. Taxes is also a problem. So If you leave all those things aside, and in my conversations when I'm talking about GTM, I think most of the times it's not very clear why we are going into the new territory. So even before we figure out that, hey, how do I do this? I think the answer that all the founders or people who are looking to move to territories should have is that, do we need to? Should we get into new territories? And if you are going into a new territory, yeah, then you need a much better plan. However, even before saying yes that let's go into a territory, I would highly recommend that for at least new founders, they need to have a test bed where they test their offering out before expanding to new territories. This brings me to how I would kind of structure this approach, that first have a very solid ICP, a tight ICP of that territory that you want to go out. Market, your buyer changes completely, like night and day. If you move from any country, say in South Asia or say Asia, and you move into the Western countries, market changes completely. The procurement processes change completely. Compliances, taxes, as we also talked about, it changes, and also the buyer's pain. I'll give you an example. Back in the day, while I was working in the digital adoption space, we were speaking with a lot of procurement and legal professionals. We were trying to implement digital adoption software on top of source to pay applications. And I always thought that, hey, why not India? But then once I started speaking with Fortune 500 companies of the globe in the US and some of the large corporations in India, I got to know that in US, when it comes to contracts, large organizations would be processing about 4,000 to 8,000 contracts of different shapes and sizes. It could be smaller ones, NDAs, etc., and it could be long form MSAs. But if you go into the US for any wealth management company or an investment banking corporation, 4,000 to 8,000 contracts are being processed every month. Now, you bring that analogy and that market insight to a territory like India. Now, say if a CLM company, a contract lifecycle management company, wants to break into India, do we even have that kind of ICP here? Or do we have that buyer persona that you want to speak to? Goes for almost every industry. Your buyer and your buyer's pain changes as you go into different territories. In some places it could be just speed, in some places it could be the simplicity of the processes, in some places it could be that my processes and my speed, all everything is taken care of, but people are not using the product, so maybe the UI just needs to be better. So have a very clear understanding of your ICP. Before going big, go as small as you can. Talk to people in your network. If you are a funded startup, then talk to your investors. See if they can connect you with some people in their network or perhaps in their portfolio companies. Speak to those folks to understand what are their real pain points and test out a couple of campaigns. You don't need to blast out 50,000 emails a month to know if it is going to work for you or not, if this pain really exists or not. Try small, start small, validate your approach before going big. That is the only way to reduce the delta. When people say that it is expensive going into new markets, that is the delta. You need to figure out that, how do I go small? I go sharp. Three pain points, three people. Fine. Have those conversations and move forward. So tight ICP, smaller tests. Once that is done, then go vertical by vertical or channel by channel as you scale. I think then it can be less expensive, it can be more fruitful, it can be much more structured.
Now I have to launch myself into the market. What do you think would be the three best steps that I need to take right away to launch myself into the market? I don't have much marketing budget. I don't have much expenditure to spend on all of these things. What are the things that we can do right away? I want to hear it from you.
Yeah, you want to, I understand. So you want to do a beta, I would recommend not going for the enterprises. It's a no-brainer. There the chances of getting a win is far later. Right now, the win for you would be, it's fine getting a no, but validation of the problem statement, right? So I'd recommend that if I have a product which fits in SMB, I directly speak with the founders with, or say if your ICP has a founder, great, you could directly share your notes with them that this is a problem that I'm trying to solve. I assume that from my research on your organization and from what I'm hearing from the market, you might be dealing with X, Y, and Z. If you quantify the impact of having those three problems, typically people would share notes. Another approach that really works well is that while you're testing things out, almost everybody in the industry, they love an underdog story. So it's fine, be honest. Reach out to people on LinkedIn, perhaps. It's such a great medium. Reach out to people who fall into your ICP and say that, hey, this is me. I'm trying to build a company out of India. Trying to get into this market. I wanted to exchange some notes and understand if this is for you. Also, what would it take to have a customer like you? Just took off the pressure. You told them that you're an underdog. You're not asking for dollars. You're asking for help and validation. I have seen that this approach works. If you say reach out to about 100 people, small, as you said, test set for that matter, reach out to about 100 people, you'll definitely get about 2 to 3 conversations. And that's what you're looking for initially and scale from there, scale from that feedback.
That's actually a nice insight. Now, I have another question for you, Darshan. In my experience, I believe that sales and support go hand in hand. I believe that there are two brothers which always have to stick together. But I've seen support folks struggling to get the handovers from sales.
Yeah.
And then there are inherited problems which support see when the customer gets churned out. Do you think there should be a structure around it? If so, do you also think that we need to make a process of how both of these functions should work together? What is your take on this?
Yeah. So I think I'm attached to this problem statement. I'm very emotional about how we treat support, how we structure support teams, how we go about supporting our customers. Because sometimes in the gamut of things that happen in an organization, unfortunately, focus goes away from the customer. Right. And that's where the problems begin. Unfortunately, again, a subset to this and supporting answer to your question that, sellers are enabled by enablement teams. Enablement teams are enabled by customer success teams. Customer success teams are only talking about customers who are giving them an approval for a case study. So at the end of the day, your seller or your sales professional is only hearing the good stuff. And that is so good that the customer is ready to give it in writing with their logos and their names along with them, right? So they're only learning the good stuff. So what this means is that unfortunately, almost all the time, say 90% of the time, when churn is a problem, it starts with over promising during sales conversations. And why did that happen? I just gave you that chain of thought. CS got a very happy customer. Customer agreed to give a case study, perhaps got a 10% discount because of doing the case study. Now, that case study comes to enablement. Enablement feeds that into a seller's mind. We promise that, hey, you just buy my tool, you'll get 6-month payback period, 480% ROI. And yeah, it's Christmas, right? So first is that. That's why I always think that support and CS teams and sales, they go hand in hand. Otherwise, it is inviting chaos to the company. So next point is that yeah, you're only talking about positive stuffs, and that due to that handoffs go bad. Second is I think support teams are really sorry about that. Support teams are really the voice of your customers. That is where I understand where my product delivers really well. That is where I get good stories from. Taking some tangents which I have leveraged and rather have worked brilliantly in my sales journeys. While working in an HRMS company, positioning it for the customers, stories came up from support that due to a particular graph that they were looking at in terms of skill set and educational qualifications that they have in their workforce, it helped them identify what's the subset of people where the tenure of that person is more than 3 years, what's the subset where we have high attrition. Now, although right now perhaps it looks small, but in hindsight, or rather, if you look at it more from a macro level, it is such a value enabler. And I'll tell you, if in sales, now this came from support. The story that hey, this person wanted to understand this wanted this graph from the product. We asked why. Okay, this is why they wanted it. Cool. I got my story to tell. Why? Because now when I was speaking to my next prospect, I asked them, "Do you have this graph?" Right? If expectations are matched correctly, via support feedback and what I'm hearing from the market. I don't need to go through market research reports from Gartner and analysts of the world to understand what my ICP wants. If I set the expectation well from a sales POV and hand it over well to my customer success and support teams, I don't really need to worry about churn. My churn is not happening. My value, my differentiated value is already established. It is established on customer evidence. It is established on practicality. And all of this information is shared with my CS and onboarding team as well. So the customer is onboarded happily, and 6 months down the line, perhaps I have a new case study that I'm talking about.
Perfect. I really love the way that you said, Darshan, that we have to make sure that we are not over delivering and we are not over promising to the people. This is really important. We have seen that sales, marketing, product, engineering, all of these functions are important. According to you, what other business functions plays a crucial role in the development of a company?
RevOps, hands down. I think RevOps, so a very misunderstood vertical, in my opinion, when it has different meanings. If you talk to a sales leader, what's RevOps for him is someone who delivers data to my SDRs and gives me dashboards to present to my leadership. If you ask a marketing guy, gives me reports that I can share with my leadership on what was my CPM, who clicked, how many clicks, how many converted, what's my win rate, conversion rate, qualification rate, MQL to SQL rate. Again, dashboard and numbers. Where if you talk about finance, they ask, okay, how many bookings? So, what's the revenue looking like? That's what they get from RevOps. So that's their definition, the guy who gives me the numbers. You talk to CS, okay, how many support tickets, resolution time, TATs, etc. However, I think RevOps plays a much more deeper role. So when we all decided that we'll combine these ops departments where you had sales ops, mark ops, fin ops, CS ops, support ops, right? So, and data ops again. So if we'll combine these six people and we'll make one umbrella department. Why? Because they uh, they are the ones where the data is coming from, and they are the ones based on whose feedback, whose reports, we are going to decide what to do. The original thought process behind calling it RevOps was that they play more of a strategic role, right? Unfortunately, somehow in the industry, in maximum organizations, that has become that department is more of system operations right now, where they're just looked at for building dashboards. In my opinion, at least the way I have worked with RevOps is that I always go to them with questions. I am trying to figure out that my MQL to SQL conversion is low. It's at percent. And this is a real scenario happened a few quarters back with me, that the MQL to SQL conversion is low. What's going wrong? Just the framing of that question, what I got back was not a report. The answer was, this is happening because we have been putting money in a channel which is not delivering. And the quality of leads that you're getting from this particular channel is actually, you're getting a lot of junk or people who are trying to learn the product. So there was a channel where we were spending, but we were getting students who were pursuing their undergrads and whatnot, and were looking at what technologies are available because perhaps they had to write a thesis, and we were spending on that channel. So I got a real answer, right? So not dashboards and reports. I think RevOps is one of the most important departments. If any company in any GTM, CS, RevOps, and sales, of course, marketing, all four of these guys have to play well together. But sales cannot operate without these two departments at all.
So, Darshan, where do you think RevOps actually stands? Is it between the leadership and the departments, or is it like under the departments? What do you think should be the hierarchy of placing the RevOps?
I think RevOps should only report to CEOs. If there is a CRO, then CRO. But RevOps should directly roll up to C level professionals in the company. It shouldn't roll up to any other department, because that is when the department's roles and responsibilities get skewed. It could be mostly, it could be either sales or it could be finance in sometimes rare cases, but yes. But I think they should report directly to the CXOs. It could be CRO or it could be CEO, because they're the ones who have all the data. They should be more of in a guidance capacity, strategic consulting capacity, rather than operational capacity where they are doing their bidding, building dashboards.
I really like the approach that you mentioned earlier. I have tried this approach in hand. I have given RevOps
Yeah.
problems rather than actually telling them the solutions.
Yeah.
They actually perform better in that context. So, in my previous instance, I have given them, let's say, two sets of problems where they came up with some solutions which are actually good. I was not expecting those responses, and they really performed good in those. We discussed about various things now, Darshan. I think we have covered sales, support, RevOps. Now, I think it's time that we discuss about the tools. So, if I had to start today and I have to build my own GTM tech stack, what tools do you think we should be get going with? If I have a company where I have to go from 1 million to 10 million, 10 million to 20, 20 to 30, or so on, what do you think should be my tech stack?
I think the journey and the landscape changes completely as you act in with every 5 to 10 million. Life changes totally, structure changes totally. So I can rather talk about Deccan AI as well. We are what about 2 year old company right now. Initially, I think last year we were all on Excel sheets. There were some automations going on, but we were extremely lean. Rather, even today we are pretty lean, and we have grown like really well. I would say in 1.5 years right now we are sitting at around 4 to 6 million in revenue. But from a tech stack perspective and to go out in the market, one is that you should really know who you're selling to and what kind of sales cycle you will have. Why that matters is that how much are you willing to burn per deal? Everybody calculates, how much am I burning every month, year, etc. People also calculate, rather in the age of AI, there's a, what do you say, there's a dashboard as well. I think Henry She has that dashboard where who has an AI driven company where the per capita is more than $1 million. So we are calculating things like that. But from a GTM lead perspective, for while we are building up that cost center, how much budget are you going to take? I think you should also keep in mind that what's my ideal sales cycle is going to look like. When am I going to be able to pay for these tools with the revenue that I'm going to get? What's my break even point, or where am I going to run out of money, etc., and things like that. So, what's your threshold? Based on that, initially, I think Apollo today has almost everything. They've got a CRM. It's not, I'm not calling it Salesforce. Of course, it's not. But for someone who's doing founder led sales, I think Apollo works. Yes, there have been some reservations around, they being banned from LinkedIn and things like that, but the data still works. So you'll get data from one platform, you will get CRM from one platform. You have their AI insights as well, where it works just like Clay agents. So you don't need to look at things which are fancy. I should get Clay, I should get Nooks, I should get all these tools, right? You should, yes, when you scale. But initially, when you're looking for validation and your first 10 customers, you don't need a lot of automation. Rather, it should be as tight as it can be. Your prospect list doesn't need to be 50,000. It can be just 1,000. That's how you validate your approach and your go. So for initial stage or very early stage startups, I think Apollo, and at the max, if at all you need it, you could use one more automation tool for your workflows, something like NA10 perhaps to target along with your LinkedIn outreach, etc. But you don't need more than that. Say you're leading, now you're chasing from 1 million, you're trying to go to 5 million. You are okay to spend, say, about 150K per year, $150,000. In that case, now you will need more tools because one, you definitely have a PMF, and now you're going to scale from your PMF here on, right? And perhaps pivot or experiment with a couple of different ICPs as well. But you need to scale fast, you need to experiment faster. For that to happen, you should definitely invest in a good calling tool. Enable your SDRs as well as you can. From 1 to 5 million, I don't think you need fancy marketing tool like Marketo or Adobe Marketo or something like Experience Cloud, or it could be Sprouts. You don't need such expensive tools. You could also do away without having something like HubSpot Marketing Hub. If you're not spending that much in ads, you actually don't need Marketing Hub, right? From 5 to 10, that's when marketing comes into play at another level altogether. That's when you come with a need that, hey, we need marketing automation tool. You need to de-anonymize your visitors, run full cycle ABM campaigns, because now you're done with SMBs mostly. And you are trying to go up market, you're trying to close mid market accounts, enterprise accounts. And these accounts require a lot of personalization. where you will require different kinds of tools. So the kind of stack that I am using right now, one thing that I've done from an efficiency perspective is that we have been able to automate our entire data gen cycle. So we have a one-person RevOps team, right? And what we have done in the last 4 months here is that data generation from Apollo is automated, is trigger based. From Apollo, the data is generated, enriched with AI agents within Apollo, right? With intent, etc. All of that is enriched and pushed to HubSpot. This is completely automated. Next, what happens is there are N8N workflows all across the GTM tech stack. From HubSpot, data goes to Smart Lead. There we already have warmed up email IDs. Email campaigns are going out, right? So for data gen and email outreach, there is zero human interaction. There's just one workflow which is doing the job. When it comes to hyper personalization around LinkedIn as well, we have automated things with Dripify. Again, different workflows pushing data from Dripify and Smartlead to HubSpot. Then your for calling, we leverage Nooks. We are leveraging Nooks because we want to leverage parallel dialing, have more conversations in a particular day, where an SDR can have a sequential dialer and do perhaps maximum 100, dials in a day. With a tool like Nooks, you could do away with 500 dials easy. So that way we are able to fast track our experimentation cycle as well. So a stack like this, what I just mentioned, your emails are sorted, your social selling or LinkedIn selling is sorted, your data is sorted with Apollo. HubSpot Professional Hub has your entire, data dashboards, reporting and things like that. Marketing Hub as well, if you get into ads. If you've got these tools, I think you are well set to scale all the way up to 20. After that, if you go into hyper personalized enterprise place, then of course you might need a sales room, etc., for collateral sharing. But you don't need anything more than that to scale beyond 20, 50, even 100. Nothing changes. You might end up spending more on your CRM, but fundamentally your tech stack won't change.
Darshan, I think you mentioned that cold calling is really important. I'm not sure if I've read it somewhere or I recall it from the previous conversations that we had. I wanted to ask you, do you really think that cold calling is still the game? Or do we actually focus on other things that are newly coming into market? Or traditional methods like emailing people or going about talking to them over the LinkedIn? What do you think?
I think brand is required, but when you're trying to hit product market fit or say your first $1 million in revenue, you can't ignore the phone at all. Especially even in founder-led sales, I think you can't ignore the phone. Cold calling is so controversial opinion. I know there are a lot of sales influencers who talk about cold call, not sales influencers actually, people who are selling tools to automate a lot of things typically say that cold calling is dead. You shouldn't go about cold calling. You should do warm calling and whatnot. But honestly, cold calling is here to stay. Human interactions are not going anywhere. And apart from events where you can have a conversation directly with someone face to face, right? There is no faster way to get validation on your pitch, on your not script, on your pitch, that does this value proposition hit the right nerves while you're speaking to someone? Because if it doesn't, then you're hoping that in a 30-minute call, you'll be able to convince someone. But if you're calling someone and giving your best value prop and someone is not ready to listen at all, even after 1,000 calls, that means something is wrong. So that validation, I think there's nothing, no better way to do it without calling people. So I'm a huge supporter of cold calling. I think SDRs are an irreplaceable resource in any company. And it has been 10 years in the industry, I still call. I make it a point that every week I dial in some numbers because I have to stay to the ground, that keep my ear to the ground, that what is happening. Are they able to resonate with my messaging? Is my intonation proper and whatnot? So cold calling, definitely you have to.
I'm seeing some inclination of people around going towards AI bots. Do you think that AI can replace the SDRs?
I have tried different bots that work in the cold calling space. None of them are good enough. So I'll tell you a very funny example. There was this call I got from a bot, and I think I don't recall the organization. So have been getting like multiple such calls. ICICI is using them, International is using them, but what they're using are still more of IVRs that say yes if you are interested. That's the only prompt that they understand, that those bots. But I got a call from a very up to some extent an intelligent bot, had a conversation, said that this is a cold call. I asked about what are your priorities this year. Okay, you're a good AI company. Practically, we are revolutionizing the same space. I was like, okay, interesting. Then I threw one question. Okay, who made you? And the response was Anthropic. So why did it say that I'm calling from this organization? These guys made me. Or a better answer that these guys supported me. I am powered by the knowledge of this product or this team, etc. There would be so many answers. Inside Anthropic, it was like, okay, there is a workflow break, no worries. I asked the same question again, and this time I got a different answer. Right, piqued my interest. Three times I asked the same question. All three times I got a different answer. So definitely, perhaps 11 labs or smallest AI, there is some engine definitely working in the back end, which is giving me different answers that the user or prompter is not satisfied. But the quality of those answers was not good. And that goes to say that humans be humans. And at the end of the day, rather, I'll ask you this. If a bot calls you or if a human calls you, who would you talk to more warmly? Would it be a human or would it be a bot? Right. So everybody, we as humans would always want to socialize with humans, not bots. So AI cold calling SDRs, I don't think that's happening. At least I don't have evidence enough to believe that it's a reality today. And I don't think I'm going to believe it for another 5 to 6 years to come.
I'm interested about one important thing, Darshan. Now, I wanted to understand if you had an instance where you liked a cold call so much that you wanted to copy that script. If you faced an instance where somebody give you a best cold call of your life, what would be the example of that? If you have any story regarding it.
Okay, interesting. So over the last 10 years or a decade of sorts, I've tried different approaches to cold calling. So one is the opener, right? The opener. So if you talk about the framework, it's standard. Any good SDR manager, or someone who understands this landscape has a simple template. First, your opener needs to be really good. That's the first thing that you say when you call someone. Second is that permission based. You need to, it can be called permission based openers, or these could be two different things. One opener and then you ask for permission. So then comes the permission. After that, once you have got the permission, comes your value prop. After value prop, mostly you'll get an objection. You handle that objection, then you go towards discovering a little more about their actual use case. You qualify the person. Once the qualification is done, then you get into going for the close, which is getting a meeting on the calendar. Or in some cases, long plays, it could be getting permission to send them something. After that, set up a phone call follow up, perhaps later in the day or the next day. So, this is the framework of any good cold call. I've heard some really awesome openers like Agent Shrihan, not Agent Shrihan. Shrihan is the son of Lakshman Papineni, the Outplay founder, right? This guy used it with someone saying that, hey, this is a 9-year-old cold caller. Would you have a chat with me or rather have pineapple on your pizza? This person was definitely not having pineapple in my pizza. Let me talk to you. Amazing opener. Something that we tried at Keka as well, that, hey, would you have a chat with me for 30 seconds about your payroll processes? Or would you throw out the phone out of your window because this is your 40th call of the day? So people said, I'm definitely not throwing the phone out of the window. What's this about? Right. So I think the opener sets up a good tone for the conversation. After that, it's all about how well you understand the prospect and its world. So how you personalize it. And then comes the qualification. How well are you able to engage the person? And then, of course, going for the close. The best one that I have got personally so far, you'll be surprised to know, was from ICICI Lombard. I know it can be shocking, but that guy was brilliant. This guy gives me a call. You don't want to hear from a bank. And this guy gives me a call and he's like, hey Darshan, I know I'm calling you out of the blue and that too in the middle of the day. If you give me 2 minutes, I perhaps will save you lakhs of rupees in the coming years to come. And I was like, okay, what's this about? And then he personalized it really well. He was basically selling insurance, right? So he personalized it really well, asked me about my age. Back then I was 28 or 29, and this person asked me, okay, so I'm sure that you'll be under a lot of pressure from your family to get married. So in the Indian, he used the demography really well. It's like, okay, interesting. I am, but how do you have this data? Okay, no, I just took a guess. You're 28. I'm sure you'd have a lot of pressure. And then he positioned maternity insurance into it. Right. Got me thinking 4 years, 5 years down the line. And it was a beautiful positioning. So what happened next was I ended up offering him a job. So I think that was the most beautiful gold call of my entire life. Selling insurance and selling it that way, I'm yet to see something better.
So I've been seeing people telling in the intro itself that it's a cold call. What do you feel about that, Darshan?
Used to be a very good opener 3 years back. So 3 years back, Josh Brown made this thing famous. Josh Brown is an influencer in the sales world. I have practically learned a lot from his content. It used to be a great opener back then. Now what happens is, at least in the US market, it's a well-known opener. And as soon as you hear that, you hear someone being very crafty. Some people have been able to pull it off. I know a lot of SDR still use it, but I think that has been a little old and overused. The openers that we were earlier talking about, that pizza on a pineapple or a conversation with a 9-year-old, throwing your phone out of the window, even they can backfire at sometimes. uh, 7 out of 10 times they work. Why I go with "Do you have a minute?" is because one, it's a personal choice that comes naturally to me, and second, I think it's honest yet not very salesy in a way. It's conversational. If you were in an event and if you bumped into someone and you wanted to ask them something, do you have a minute? If you were on the road and perhaps doing some sort of beta testing with your FMCG products, that's what you will do. If you are volunteering someone somewhere and asking for feedback or donations and whatnot, that's where you start. Do you have a minute? It's natural. That's why I always go for that opener. I think it's evergreen. It's never going to go out of fashion.
So I think we discussed a lot, Darshan, today. And now I have one last question for you. I wanted to understand, what are you experimenting on right now? I am seeing a lot of advancements, a lot of new tools coming into market. Are you experimenting on something? If you are you seeing any good response from those things?
So from a experimentation standpoint, I think I'm experimenting with a lot of things this year. I've tried a lot of things in terms of, so I've been playing around tools like Lovable and our homegrown Rocket.new, from building one pagers for specifically for a couple of prospects. That has proven to be very useful. For example, imagine 6 months back, if you wanted to send a personalized deck to someone, so either you'll need a master deck which you can personalize, and even then, personalization would mean putting in logos and a couple of words there. But here, if you give it the right structure, you can have your one pagers ready in a snap. So I've tried leveraging these two tools, which are primarily built to build websites and web applications and whatnot. I've tried using them for one pages. It works really fast. Canva also works really fast. But prior to them, these players came into the market. So such small experiments, I always am quick to adopt new things. But on a large scale, one thing that I'm experimenting is AI-based orchestration. What Clay does from a data standpoint for intent signals, to qualify certain accounts, to signal certain accounts, I am trying to get that done on different levels, different layers, pre-meeting, post-meeting, pre-reach out, post-reach out, based on different responses. Some level of email automation. If I get a response from a prospect, okay, tag that person and that account in HubSpot as green, orange. And I'm not saying that this is not hot, warm, cold. That's something that you could do earlier as well. But the quality of response that you've got, unfortunately, back in the day, if you get a response, even an that would be seen as a reply and as a positive engagement from one of your prospects or one of your accounts. But if you add a very simple layer of AI on top of it, using N10 workflows, perhaps plug in very cheap system, plug in GPT, even if you're using minimal tokens, you'll be able to see if those are positive signals or not. If it is not interested, why not interested? Did we respond with an email as to, is this not a good time to work on this problem statement? Those are some things that I'm working on. So for SDRs, for account executives, Also at a late stage on from a CS perspective as well, that how's the project going, what kind of signals are we seeing in the transcript. So AI based orchestration on that front I am working on and I'm experimenting with. So far it has been working really well. Second thing that I am at scale, which I am experimenting with, is RevOps based or RevOps led sequencing. So with these workflows itself, your messaging up to a large extent can be managed. The same feedback as to what's working, what's not working can be shared with marketing as well for long form content generation. But to tie these knots, I can have 3 sessions every day with all different stakeholders, or I can have one session bi weekly with one RevOps person who's orchestrating this entire thing. So sequence is anyways being vetted by the content guy. Uh, it is being sent out via Smartly. I am not working on it. As I said, from a workflow perspective, it's zero human touch. Accounts are being added, emails and contacts are being added, being sent out all automatically. But the content piece of it is something which, again, automated some parts of it, but RevOps is leading that piece based on the feedback that is coming on from account executive calls as well as from SDR calls, if which messaging is resonating better. So yeah, RevOps led sequencing and AI based orchestration at scale. These two things I'm experimenting with. And yeah, I think you had a second question as well. My bad, I missed out. And that with AI, where are we headed? Right. Uh, GTM teams, I think AI is increasing the efficiency of every GTM professional today. Off late, I've been seeing a lot of agencies, content marketing agencies, typical marketing agencies as well, who are finding new ways to automate a lot of content generation and optimization, right? From a perspective of sales as well, I personally recently posted about this as well, but I am practicing almost every cold call script that I've written with GPT these days in automation mode. It's brilliant. OpenAI has millions of dollars going into making this more realistic, more conversational, this LLM. It's not going in vain. It's perfect. It gives you, if you give the right instructions, it's a no BS approach. It'll actually start acting just like your buyer. Post call analysis, post deal analysis, all of these things. In HubSpot, they release this Breeze, right? You can do deal analysis right there in HubSpot. It has all the data right there. So what I feel is that GTM will just start moving faster. That's the direction that we are heading in. Efficiency is going to increase in almost every direction. And we are going to end up prioritizing depth and human interaction both. Depth in the sense of how well do you understand your subject, whatever you're selling. It could be revenue orchestration platform, it could be an HRMS, it could be a DAP software. Whatever you're selling, how what's the depth of your knowledge in your domain? Because that will inspire the quality of conversations you can do. That will inspire the quality of content you're producing, the prompts that you're putting in these different language models. But all in all, depth, and then comes your overall efficiency of working through different channels. It's going to that the AI is being taught wrong things. Back in the day, not just now, 10 years, 15 years back, we did have the technology to templatize emails with certain, what do you call them, placeholders, customize them with placeholders that here you goes the company name, here goes the documented pain point that he could have, here goes the industry name, etc. So the email that comes out is, hey Naman, I know that I see, congratulations on your startup. I know Simplify, I know you're building something really cool in the billing and revenue orchestration space. Yeah, and I would like to sell you this cool software. And then comes the value prop. It doesn't say that, hey, Raman, you recently posted about this. I strongly feel that this would be very, very useful for your customers. Another thing is how you approach these conversations with your customers. I've got this research tool. So that is personalization. Saying that, I see that you're working on the product side in KK and now you're building something like this. That is personalization. That you are not teaching the AI. I can pull up your LinkedIn, download it, and feed it to GPT and say that, hey, write an email. It'll write the email that I told you earlier. Hey, Naman, you work at Simplify. Cool software. Congratulations. Here's my software for you. I could give the same LinkedIn profile to GPT or OpenAI for that matter and say that I want to write an email, leverage what he has written in his descriptions about him, as well as what he has written as a description to his work experience, connect the dots with his industry and what his buyers would be looking for. In the end, throw in a low resistant, high value CTA, could be just a collateral that I could share with him for, which would be beneficial for him. Now, what you just did is that you personalized it. You threw in a value prop, yes, but you connected it with the outcome that you are looking for as a founder. And then you gave a low resistant, high value output, which could basically be a calculator. Will this work for me? And it doesn't take much to build something like that. You say yes to it, I send it back to you, and I say that let's connect on a 15-minute call. That is personalization driven results in sales or GTM today. But again, going back to using AI, if you don't have depth of your subject, doesn't matter if you use AI or not, the output is still going to be subpar with your expectations.
I think you really explained it really well how we need to write better prompts and not scare people off.
Yeah, that is all, I guess.
All right, now it's my favorite part, Darshan. I wanted to do a rapid fire with you. I will give you two options. You can select whatever comes to your mind at first. So the first one that I have for you is cold call or warm intro.
Warm intro closes faster.
Now the next one is APAC or US.
US, more revenue.
Do you prefer to build a product or buy a product?
Buy. If it's context, buy. If it's core, cool, you could build it. But buying is faster.
Okay.
That's how you scale.
Sales or support first? Which one do you prefer?
Damn. Combine it. Support led sales.
All right. The last one. What is one word for your sales style?
Aggressive. Understanding. Aggressive.
All right. This was a great session. Thank you for joining us today, Darshan. I really liked that conversation today.
Likewise, Naman. It was fun. So, as I said, I love talking about sales. Although this is what I do all day, but I still love talking about the subject. I think the subject needs to be talked more about. Sales as a subject, unfortunately, doesn't get the attention that it needs and the depth as well. There's so much in the subject. I'm not saying that you can, with physics, you can build rockets. I'm not saying with sales, you can build rockets, but you can sell them. So give it the same respect that you would any other subject. It's a lot of fun if you do it right.
Thanks for tuning into Revenue Talks, guys. This is a podcast where I sit with founders, operators, GTM leaders to unlock what is really going on around the space. This podcast series is brought to you by Simplify, which is a revenue automation platform or revenue orchestration platform which helps you to automate your entire revenue lifecycle journey. When I say revenue lifecycle journey, I mean that your proposals, checkout, billing, subscription, upsell, downsell, everything is covered without any developer effort. If you are really interested, I will put a link into the description of this video, which you can use to book a call with the relevant folks around the Simplify. I will see you in the next one. Till then, keep growing.